Welcome to episode 26 of Cooperators. With me always is Chucking Dice.
Hello.
And I am Augmented Biscuits. I wonder if I should update my Twitter handle one of these days. Instead of Augmented Biscuits, it should be something else.
No, then you just confuse it. What do you mean, like update it? Like
I think I'm gonna change it from Augmented Biscuits to Augmented. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it. Fuck it. It's too difficult. Oh, my brain's already hurting. So today we got Nazis and untold stories and rant on why we hate Nazis.
Right, but
we're also talking about Star Wars.
Talking about Star Wars, but I think we'll start out with something a little light, a little portable. I should say. We're talking about good old 3DS because this is the only system that we own other than PlayStations.
PlayStation, yeah. Yeah, and I don't really have a gaming PC.
Yeah, well, I guess I do have a gaming PC, but I like the Nintendo 3DS because it's portable, it's simple. The library seems to go on forever and ever and ever and ever.
Yeah, although I'm curious to see if Nintendo at some point is gonna stop.
I hope not, because I really dig the games on this. I'm actually, you've seen my 3DS, and I've downloaded a lot of different games, whether it be older games, newer games, the entire gamut. You
actually have a new game you want to talk about, right? Or new game you got.
Right, new game I got that was only available in Europe, but let's talk about yours first, because that's how I put in this order.
Oh, we're talking about Pokemon?
Well, you're talking about Pokemon.
I'm talking about
I don't like this stupid stuff.
Oh, my God. Okay, so
Pokemon sucks.
So we're going to talk about Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon.
Right.
These are I think these are the third versions of this release. So
third versions?
Yeah, so originally there was Pokemon Sun and Moon, and then they had I believe they had Pokemon Sun and Moon like I don't know, Super or something.
What?
And then now these are like the final like seriously guys, these are the final version. Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon, and this Pokemon takes place not on the normal Pokemon continent, but on like an island. Essentially, it takes place in Hawaii. The other Pokemon takes place in the U.S. or Japan probably, but this takes place on like an island.
Where does Pokemon take place on Earth?
I have no fucking idea. Honestly, okay. I've never played a Pokemon game in my life.
But you wanted to try it out. You want to see what all the hubbub is about.
Yeah, I want to see what the hubbub is. I ended up actually buying the double pack. The double pack each game retails for $40 each.
Right.
Double pack is $80. I was able to find it for $60, and I was like, what the hell? I was reading good things. They had a few articles on Kotaku and on Polygon and other sites saying like, if you want to get into Pokemon, this is probably the best entry in the series. They've streamlined a few things. They made it a little easier by letting you save anywhere. It's really accessible, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right, screw it. 34-year-old man, because I just turned 34. 34-year-old man tries Pokemon, fails miserably.
Right.
The games aren't bad. I actually thought they were charming. The world is a little too cutesy for my taste. Though I have read that there's some quests that get a little dark. But overall the world is very sunny and shiny, and you're in case you don't know about Pokemon, the whole story is you trying to become a Pokemon master. Pokemon are these little monsters that you throw out from balls, and
Right.
actually that actually can describe having kids. You throw these little
You go around kidnapping kids.
No,
and
you throw
putting them in balls.
No, you throw children out of your balls. And they're little monsters.
Yeah.
And they fight each other. And this game, I mean, I wasn't too fond. The world is like I said, it's shiny, it's fun. You're kind of like a preteen. I'm not fond of it, honestly. I think one of the reasons why I'm not fond of it is because the game does hold your hand a lot in the beginning, and there's a lot of text.
Oh, it's for children, so
yeah, and it's a lot of tutorials.
Right.
But then when you get into the nitty gritty of it, it can be a little difficult. You're fighting monsters together, and one thing I noticed, and this is something I actually talked to Chuck and Dice about, was I actually thought it was clever that they essentially took JRPG games and they repackaged them in a version for kids.
Right.
Because you in this game, the fight mechanic, the battle mechanic, is like every other Pocket Monster game. You're just picking commands. They do commands, and if it's if your monsters or your attack is powerful against a certain type, it does more damage. If it doesn't, it's not it's not effective. You have items you can use. You can switch out characters. You win a match when you knock the other person out. It's really clever. This is coming from someone who's never played Pokemon, so don't. If you're wondering, like, dude, where have you been for the last 20 years? Well, I've not been playing Pokemon. So I totally missed the Pokemon train.
You're not missing much. I mean, I played the my friend had a Game Boy Color. My friend Tim. And he let me play a little bit of it. Pokemon, I think it was Pokemon Yellow or Gold or whatever, the one with Pikachu in it.
Yeah. Where
he follows you around, and then every so often he gets depressed. Like fight mechanic wise, it just reminded me of a JRPG.
Yeah.
But like story wise, not much going on here other than you need to become a Pokemon monster.
It's just way too cutesy and childish, right. And I mean, again, it's probably not the target audience, obviously.
Well, I also played Pokemon Go, the phone game for a little bit because you're walking around and collecting it, but. I eventually got bored with that too. I don't know why people played it so much and got really excited about it and stuff like that. I did dig the fact that it got you out of the house and you had to walk around and stuff, and that's pretty cool. But other than that, there's not much going on with Pokemon. Yeah. I mean no offense to people who really enjoy this kind of stuff. It just seems really stupid to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to me too.
Yeah, it just seems really dumb.
Like I said, I totally missed the channel on it. But, I mean, I will say that it's very polished.
Yeah.
They got some cool, mechanics.
Right.
And some of the monster designs are actually really cool.
Right.
It seems very easy on explaining how to efficiently fight.
Mm-hmm.
Though there was a bullshit part where it said, we're going to make your character fight against type that is totally against that you're totally going to be ineffective against, and you're not going to be able to switch out. I had to pretty much build my party. I had to go back to a save point and rebuild my party so I can fight effectively.
Right.
But I don't know. It wasn't my cup of tea.
Okay.
I immediately sold it because I hate everything. But I would recommend if anybody who's younger or who you like Pokemon, you'll probably definitely love this.
So if you like stupid shit or you're younger, you can go ahead and play Pokemon.
Yeah, we're going to be harsh on that. I will say this. If you have not played these games, this is probably the best version to get because it has all the previous, it's the same goddamn game you've bought the last 2 times, but it's Ultra. So you've never played these games.
These are like the Madden for these,
I mean, if you haven't played these games, I'd pick up this version. But if you already
WWE wrestling type games,
if you have the other version,
just the newest version, just get that one.
Exactly. If you have the other versions of the games, don't even bother. There's not enough new to. But that's my review. That's a 34-year-old man's review on playing Pokemon.
And you just sold that stuff as fast as you could.
I did.
Yeah. Well, at least you got some money out. I mean.
I broke
some
even.
return. Oh, you broke even?
I basically broke even.
That's good enough. No harm. Basically, you didn't waste anything. You didn't gain anything.
Yeah, I think.
Unfortunately.
Well, here's the thing. I think I'm actually going to start my GameFly subscription back up because I've noticed I've bought a few games. And I'm like, well, I bought some games on Black Friday, and we're actually going to talk about one of the games I bought on Black Friday. But yeah, I think I'm going to start my GameStar description because I probably could have just rented this and been like, all right, I don't need to play this anymore.
All right. Moving on, I bought a DS game. This is a older DS, like the original DS. This was only available in Japan and Europe, actually. It's The Last Window, The Secret of Cape West, which is a sequel to Hotel Dusk. This never came out in the U.S. for whatever reason. I guess Hotel Dusk didn't really do too well, even though it was a very unique game.
How much did you buy this for?
I think it was like $20.
Oh, it's not bad. Usually with like rare games, it's
Yeah.
like, we're going to charge you $60 for this fucking game that's 30 years old.
It's rare here, but I guess because I got this overseas, and I was very surprised because like the shipping didn't cost that much either.
Okay.
It's rare here, but like it's not really rare in the UK. And like someone was letting it go. I think totally like maybe $23.99 was the entire thing I paid for it, and it took months to get to me, but eventually it did. Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, like, if you haven't played Hotel Dusk, it kind of just plays like a play novel. You're not exactly doing a whole bunch of like precise button pressing or doing anything like that. It's more investigative. You're going from basically it takes all place in your apartment. You find out that your apartment was a renovated hotel, so that I guess gives you the idea of like, oh, you're doing another Hotel Dusk kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Hotel Dusk is a game, like the original game is about a mystery about a woman, and you're a door-to-door salesman who used to be a detective trying to discover this mystery. There's not really a lot of insidious things that happen in Hotel Dusk, though. It's just a very interesting story. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting detective story, and Last Window is kind of on that same kind of vein. It starts out with you like coming back to your apartment, finding out that you're being evicted, and you got about a month to leave. You've just been fired from your job of being a salesperson. It takes place in the 80s, so it has a lot of like 80s atmosphere. So like no cell phones or anything or computers of high technology during that time. And it's a very kind of just, again, it's just an interesting game to play. Not I wouldn't say it's for kids, but I don't think it's that extreme where it's like a kid couldn't play this game. It's just like a whole lot of reading for them, and maybe they won't get like some of the references that are in the game. But for me, it was perfect because it's like one of those games I can like pick up, play for a little bit, and put it down and continue it on. It's like reading a book basically, except that you can make a couple choices here and there. So if you do have the resources to purchase this game for your DS, it's the great thing about DS games that are available in Europe is that the original DS was region free. I think currently the 3DS is not, though, which I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing because I don't know if there's any like really great games on the 3DS in Europe. But the original DS is region free, so you can play any of the PAL games that were available in the UK on your new Nintendo 3DS because it's backwards compatible. So, yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying it. I'm still playing it right now. I had to put down Metroid for a little bit so I can play this game and just kind of concentrate on that.
Do you hold it like a novel?
Yeah, you hold it like a book. So instead of holding it like with the controller,
That's how the original Hotel Dusk
you turn it basically and it looks like you're reading a book. So I don't know, people might come up to you and say, hey, you're holding that wrong, and you can tell them to go fuck off because you're not playing fucking Pokemon.
Fuck off. One, why are you looking at my DS? And two, fuck off.
Exactly.
Fucking people and their opinions, man.
Sometimes it's weird, I was just
this coming from a podcast of opinions?
Of opinions.
Fucking people and their opinions.
Sometimes only people's opinions, they like, okay, so I'm at a public place. I'm waiting for, I'm at a Panera Bread or whatever. I'm waiting for my sandwich. And then a person just comes up to me and just like, starts talking to me of like, hey, hey, what did you order? Or, hey, what did did you know this happened? Like, I don't know the person. And I get it. They're trying to make a conversation. But look, I just want to get my sandwich and kind of leave. And so, you humor them for a little bit. But then, like, it's like giving a mouse a cookie. And then all of a sudden you unleash this, like, avalanche of this person just chatting you up. And you're like, okay, great. Okay. That's great.
You're like Ralphie from Christmas. Where he's like, please don't talk to me.
Please don't talk to me. I'm a thinking. All right, so let's move on. So you got a game on.
Yeah. So Black Friday.
On Black Friday.
Was last week.
Yeah.
I picked up a few games. I picked up I picked up Dishonored: Death of the Outsider. It's actually it's a DLC. It's a standalone. It's actually a standalone story from Dishonored 2.
Yeah.
It stars one of the characters you encounter, but I still haven't played that because I was playing Wolfenstein. The other game I got was Wolfenstein II: The New Colossus.
Yeah. Which
is great, by the way. Probably it's actually even better than the previous game, which was New Order.
Dude, here's the thing. I don't like. It feels like that there's been like 200 Wolfenstein games. Yet this one's called Wolfenstein 2.
The cool thing though is I think starting with Wolfenstein, I believe it was like one of the Wolfensteins. I think it was the one that was on like Xbox and PS2. It's like Wolfenstein. It's just Wolfenstein, and I think it was like I forgot what year it is, but it's a continuation of the entire story, starting from just Wolfenstein. The Wolfenstein I'm referring to is the one where BJ, and it's still BJ Blazkowicz. Yeah. So he has like this amulet in that Wolfenstein, and it has different powers. So this game is a continuation of that entire story. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, so if you're not familiar with Wolfenstein, I mean, if you're familiar with Wolfenstein, it didn't really exactly start on the PS2.
Yeah.
It actually started a long time ago, like even before id created their own game. But there used to be a game called Castle Wolfenstein, and it was sort of a weird, it's an old, I think it was an Apple game.
Yeah.
And it was about a person who was in a labyrinth of, basically, he was infiltrating an underground Nazi base. And he had to have papers to kind of get past guards. He actually had a gun. He had to try and crack safes and get documents and then try to get out of the labyrinth alive. And basically basically do your basic infiltration, Mission Impossible stuff.
And this was before the Wolfenstein, the 3D Wolfenstein.
Then, the 3D Wolfenstein came out by id, and it was basically like a precursor to Doom. It was still like a character who's stuck in a sort of a Nazi prison, I guess, but it's an underground base. He's armed with a gun, and he has to kill a bunch of Nazis until he escapes. And his name was BJ Blazkowicz back in the day, who later on they would discover that he's an actual blood relative to Commander Keen, another id game.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So, and then that didn't really get a sequel back then, but years later, a new Wolfenstein game came out for PlayStation 2 and
Xbox
and all that stuff.
PC. Yeah.
Now, is this the sequel to that game? That's what you're saying.
Yes, it's the sequel to the one that I believe it was Wolfenstein 2007 or something like that. But that's a continuation. These games are continuations of that. Stars BJ Blazkowicz.
Yeah. So tell us about this game.
So this game actually picks up. Right after.
The first game.
The first game, which picks up right after New Colossus. At the end of New Colossus, you killed General Death's Head.
That's his name.
And when you kill, that's his name. That's his actual name. His nickname. You killed General. His name is something Strauss.
Right.
Like General Strauss.
But he has a nickname.
It's General Strauss, but they call him Death's Head.
Yeah.
So you end up killing Death's Head, and you fight him in this giant mech that actually looks like the Adolf Hitler mech. You know, the one in the original.
Yeah, in the original game. Yeah.
So you fight him in this giant mech, and you pull him out, and you stab him, and he pulls a grenade, and he actually blows you up. Yeah. He dies, but he tries to take you with him. And in the end of that, you're dying, and you basically tell him, go ahead and drop a nuke on his compound. Fuck it. I'm not gonna stop it. I'm done.
Right.
You get rescued right before that happens. You wake up and they do surgery on you. And the start of the game is actually you've been on this Nazi U-boat that you stole in the previous game for a while.
Yeah.
You're on the Nazi U-boat and you're actually in a wheelchair, and the U-boat gets attacked by Nazis. And the opening level of the game is you in a wheelchair fighting Nazis. You end up getting, you end up rescuing your friends, and then that's when the game starts. And a few things happens. I don't want to spoil it, but a few things happens, and you end up having to take down the new person who took over General Strauss's position. Her name is General Engel, and she's this Nazi woman commando that you fought in the previous game, who's now head of everything. And it just goes there, and it just goes from there. And honestly, this game is awesome. It plays really, really well. It's from so they know first-person shooters. It runs really, really smooth. The graphics look great. The gunplay is incredible. They have really cool weapons. They have they have a certain limited selection of weapons, but the weapons you can actually upgrade with upgrade kits, and you can do different things.
So what I remember in the original Wolfenstein, you had a pistol, you had a machine gun, and then you had a chain gun. That's from the first chapter.
This one you have a pistol. You have essentially like an SMG submachine gun.
Yeah.
You have a normal machine gun, and then you also have a shotgun.
Yeah.
And a kind of hand grenade launcher. And then you end up getting this kind of like this energy weapon. It's like a lightning. They call it the Tesla gun. And then you can upgrade each of them. You also have grenades and throwing axes.
So like you can upgrade them. Like you can like make them more powerful and hold more ammo,
so
stuff like that.
So each of them you can do different like with the pistol and some machine gun you can make them silenced. With the shotgun you can have ricochet rounds.
Yeah.
With the Tesla gun you can make them charge up for more powerful shots.
Like a mega buster almost.
Yeah, almost like a mega buster. Grenades can come into you can make a grenade that is both electric, napalm, and fragmented, so it does more damage, it burns people over time, and it knocks out mech soldiers. So the storyline behind this is again starting with New Colossus. There was this group called the God damn it, I forgot. It's Dashun. Essentially, like it's the kind of like secret cabal of people who invented things to just be closer to God. Their whole thing was they wanted to invent things because not to rule the world or destroy the world or for their own kind of like pleasure. They just invented things because that's how they in their minds they communicated with God. They invented things. And the story is that the Nazis found one of their caches, secret caches around in the world.
Right.
And with that technological advantage, they won World War II. After beating Europe in World War II, they dropped an A-bomb on New York and had America surrender. So when this game starts, New Colossus was in Europe. This game actually takes place in America now. And, this might be... I mean, a lot of people were wondering how did they know that this was going to happen, or how did they really make this game reflect that the world we're in now? But again, you got to remember, video games are in development years before, for years.
Yeah.
So I think this was in development right after the first game finished up. So they couldn't have predicted at all like where America was going to head.
Right.
But in this game, you go to America, and America has been taken over by Nazis. They're basically it's essentially how Japan was occupied by America after they dropped the A-bomb on them.
Yeah.
It's the same story.
Same kind of story.
Yeah, so they call them the American colonies, the American territories. It's weird. There's a few levels where you're kind of going into 1960s America, and you see Nazis around, and they're talking to KKK because they use the KKK to as foot soldiers, or in the game they describe them the blunt instrument to get people in line.
Right.
And it's really bizarre seeing the KKK, and you actually fight against like KKK members in the game. This whole game is about building a resistance. So you're doing two things. You're fighting against the Nazis, but you're also trying to get revenge on General Engel. And
this kind of reminds me of the Amazon Prime TV show Man in High Castle.
Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, it's really fun lore wise, because you do find a lot of like letters and things like that about the world. They try to show you that some of the Nazis are a lot of the Nazis are really really horrible people, but they also show you that they also have some doubts about themselves, about their ideology. There's more backstory on BJ.
Right.
There's a lot more at stake because now
more backstory on BJ. You,
God damn it, I hate you so.
You gross man. You.
He's got a lot more to lose now
Right.
because he's got a pregnant wife. With he's having twins, so she's pregnant, and so he doesn't want.
Jesus Christ, he's got a pregnant wife, and they know that she's having twins.
Yeah, and so he's got something more to fight for because
Right.
he doesn't want them to be brought up in the world of Nazis. But again, aside from all that, the game is really really fun. I mean, they just really just let you go to town on Nazis. They really do everything in their power to make these characters really really horrible,
Right.
and really kind of show you the ugliness of being subjected to a regime as the Third Reich. There are some
it's like it's a regime that's based on hate. So,
yeah.
I mean,
So,
there's
and
not a lot of like sunshiny things that you
yeah,
get to
and I'm not
say
gonna
about
lie
it,
to
yeah.
you. I mean, it's really just kind of
Yeah.
airy when you're playing this.
Yeah.
Because again, of the state of the world we're in now, it's really fun. I think for me, there was a lot of moments where it's just very cathartic.
Mhm.
It's also a really really funny game.
Right.
They actually got one character who is your typical conspiracy theorist, and you actually go visit Area 51, but in this one it's called Area 52,
Right.
and he's just like it's hilarious. It's so fucking funny. But they also delve into a lot, like I said before, they delve into BJ's background. They delve into how he was brought up. No spoilers, but they do delve into his mother and his father. So it's just a really good game. If you played New Colossus, you enjoyed that, you will really, really enjoy this sequel.
What, New Colossus is a sequel or?
If you the New Order was the first game in
Right.
this this one. New Colossus is a sequel. You'll really enjoy New Colossus if you enjoyed New Order. I highly recommend it. I also would recommend it too if you like just really great single player games. It's sad, but nowadays not a lot of companies are making single player games because there's not really any money to it. Because you can't really monetize it.
Right.
I'm sure everyone knows about the Battlefield 2 fiasco. Sorry, the Star Wars Battlefront 2 fiasco.
About the loot boxes and
yes,
basically
and essentially EA just came out outright and said like the reason why we don't. Well, that's also tied into how they closed down Visceral Studios. Visceral Studios was making
Dead Space.
They were basically
remember
making
that,
they were making a single player Star Wars game that was
Right.
supposed to be big budget and really like action orientated and just very good single player game with the director of the first Uncharted, Amy Hennig, and they closed the studio down.
Right.
And the reason that they closed the studio down was because EA said that there's no more money in single player games. And it's a shame because you have companies like Bethesda who make awesome single player games. Like their studios make really, really great single player games. I mean, we talked about Dishonored 2,
Yeah.
how much I love that game. This is a really good game. I mean, Skyrim I always thought was a really great. A lot of all those Elder Scrolls games are great single player games, and it's just a shame that now the state of the video game industry, there's no money in that.
Well, it seems like it's more the state of the top tier kind of game makers.
Yeah.
They want to make a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
And they were doing that for a long time, and then they find out, if we put microtransaction stuff, we can make even more money.
Yeah.
We can sell the game for $69.99, then make all this downloadable content and microtransactions to improve the characters, and it then it's running into that territory of why I hate phone games.
Yeah,
I hate all the phone games.
A lot of things are turned to play to win.
Yeah,
free to play games.
Yeah. So
now, and that was something I know when the Dead Space 3 came out, we were talking about we didn't really mind the microtransactions in this game because we actually thought those were totally unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's fine that they were in there, but we didn't think it broke the game.
No, we didn't.
And I actually talked to a friend of mine. He didn't play it, but he's like, well, I didn't like the inclusion of being able to buy ammo in that game. And I said, have you played the game?
Yeah.
And he's like, no. Then you have no reference to complain about being able to buy ammo in that game, because if you play that game, you see that it adds nothing to the game to buy ammo.
Right.
It'll help you.
Yeah.
I do say that. It will help you, but it there's no need to.
Yeah, I think I bought like the last scenario.
We bought the
scenario.
DLC, and that was because we enjoyed the core game so much. We wanted to see the story expand. Now, that's one thing I don't mind with single player games. It's like, if you're gonna give me the option, if you're gonna continue the story with a DLC and make it worthwhile and really expand, great, I'll buy it. Because I did that with Dishonored. I did that with Dishonored 2. Wolfenstein.
Yeah.
I actually bought it with the season pass because they're making. They announced that they're making these. The first DLC that they were going to release are these essentially kind of standalone stories of other freedom fighters in the world with you.
Right.
They're kind of like serialized World War II, kind of like Captain America type characters. You know, you have a femme fatale assassin who has one eye. You know, you have this all-American football player who like decides to fight Nazis. And then you kind of have like this kind of general Captain America type dude.
Right.
Kind of like similar to BJ Blazkowicz. But I mean, that's a
world building.
That's a world building kind of
it goes
DLC.
into the story and stuff like that.
And also, I mean, I enjoyed this game so much. I'm good. I'm okay supporting it.
Right.
So I highly recommend it. There's some crazy shit that happens in this game. I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but there is a point in the middle of the game where, like, you think things are gonna go the way they're gonna go. Like, oh, they're gonna, something's gonna happen. Typical, like, oh, they're gonna save him, and then it just gets really fucking weird. But yeah, I recommend it.
So moving on, like, and this goes with Wolfenstein 2. Apparently, this game has been like highly politicized in the realm of media.
Yeah, and social media as well. And it was mainly because of Bethesda's campaign of they went full blown punch a Nazi in the face.
Right.
Now, as everyone knows, we do have real life Nazis now.
We've always had
we've always had real life now.
They've been referred to as neo-Nazis, or I guess I don't know.
There've been neo-Nazis, white supremacists, KKK,
the alt-right.
But now I think that's kind of what's happening more recently is they've kind of tried to clean up that like neo-Nazi like kind of like full of hate, kind of trashy image, and they've created the alt-right,
right,
which are just a different packaged Nazi.
Yeah,
they're like you were saying, their ideology is still hate.
Yeah, I don't get like hey, we're gonna repackage ourselves and we're gonna be like appealing to everyone. I'm like, it's not gonna be appealing to me because I'm a minority and
you still hate me.
Yeah, I'm technically your enemy.
Yeah.
Just because I was born that way.
Exactly. And there was a lot of uproar recently because in New York, was it the New York Times or was it the Wall Street Journal? They did a profile on someone who was essentially a fucking Nazi.
Yeah, and he lost his job apparently because of that. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because of the article.
Yeah, they recently did an article and they tried to dress him up as like, oh, he's just your next door neighbor who likes to go on his porch and smoke and drink and like.
Well, I didn't think they lived in an underground bunker. I know that they're around.
Yeah, like you still fucking hate me because I'm not white and Christian. Yeah. Like. I don't fucking get it.
Yeah,
but
I don't get
it's just the same shit dressed up in a different package. So a lot of this was their marketing got a lot of flack. I would say unfairly, because their marketing was punch a Nazi in the face, play Wolfenstein to the new Colossus.
It's like let's make America Nazi free again. I think is the actual, and then some people took offense to that because it like. Kind of like went in with the message of like, oh, you think Trump's a Nazi? It's like, well, he doesn't really decry against them, but we're just doing something. We're just kind of creating interest in our game, and
there was people who were saying like, how dare you bring your SJW bullshit into Wolfenstein? I'm not gonna buy this crap because you're making up. It's like Wolfenstein was always about fighting Nazis. And to further step, Call of Duty World War II, another thing. World War II was about fighting fascism and Nazis. Like,
the thing is that Nazis have always been bad guys in movies, video games, television shows, comic books, old 1930s serials, old just like in even in novels. It's really hard to paint them as good guys. Unless you're going back to that, I think that there's this old comic book. It's called I forgot what it was called, but it's about a girl who's like discovering the like neat things about fascism, and it's like really dressed up to look really like really supportive to the great things about being a Nazi. I forgot what era that came out of, but it was really, lame. But I mean, we've had so much movies about like, Indiana Jones, for example. Like he beats up Nazis all the time, except for I think one movie, actually two movies, if you kind of consider
Temple of Doom,
Temple of Doom and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. He's not beating up Nazis.
Actually, I thought he was fighting Nazis. No, you're right. No, you're right.
Russians,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like we've had that.
Yeah.
And like now people are saying something about it.
Yeah, I don't know what and this was
and I can't say it's like an internet thing because the internet has been around for now, I'd say over 20 years.
Yeah.
You want to say? Yeah.
I'd say 20 years.
20 at least 20 years.
Probably at least 20 years.
Yeah. So
and that was one thing we were talking about. I was like,
yeah.
From the time New Order came out to the time New Colossus came out, what has changed?
Right.
Because they didn't have a problem with this when New Order came out.
Right.
But then New Colossus came out, and it was a huge fucking deal.
Right.
So what exactly changed?
What exactly changed? I mean, like, remember when what's it called? Inglourious Bastards came out?
Yeah.
That was basically about the same kind of stuff. It's kind of an alternate take on history where, they kill a bunch of Nazis in that theater and blah, 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 blah. Spoiler alert, they killed Nazis in that movie. If you're a Nazi and you're checking, first of all, why you're listening to our podcast.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know. But you know what? You want to know something really fucking hilarious, though?
What's that?
In Wolfenstein II, just real quick, there's a letter that you find from a Nazi. He's a lieutenant writing to his commander, right?
Right.
And he says, because in that game like I said, they talk about using the KKK as like a blunt force instrument, as like a hammer.
Yeah.
They're not very precise, but they get the job done.
Right.
And it's funny because in the letter he's writing to his commander, he goes, they were it was nice using them as a blunt force instrument. He's like, but honestly, he says in the letter, he's like, their usefulness has waned. And he's like, and they're just so dumb. He's like, these KKK guys are so moronic. And I just could not stop laughing at that letter because they totally just like, I just love the way this world was built. Like just that lore. And it's just like, just looking at this stuff. I mean, it's hilarious. There's a scene where one of them is trying to practice. He's talking to a Nazi like patrolman and he's trying to speak German to him. And the guy yells at me. He's like, how dare you butcher my language? Go home and take your goddamn German lessons and pay attention. Like, stop, ruining the motherland's language. And it's just, it's great. But I agree. I mean, I don't know. I hate that people thought this was political because it's like, it's always been the thing is to punch Nazis.
Yeah. I mean, like it's hard to see, like we said before, it's hard to see a group that's entire ideology is based on like hate and like and like just oppression and like I guess if you're maybe a Holocaust denier, maybe this makes more sense. But the idea of denying Holocaust is as silly as like dinosaurs never existed to me.
Yeah,
those are two different sides of the argument of people with like hardcore ideology with like either Nazism and religion. Like dinosaurs never existed. Like, well, of course they existed. Look at these bones.
We have a scientific. Yeah. They've been scientifically proven.
Yeah, and like and we have history to tell us about what the Nazis did. We have Auschwitz. We have all this like material that we found after the war.
We have millions of people who've told their stories of what happened when they were transported to these camps.
Yeah. Like, did they all drop acid and like all hallucinate the entire thing?
This has got to be a pretty big fucking conspiracy if millions and millions of people said the same goddamn story. Like at that point, it's like, no, this is. Right. You're an idiot for not thinking this is not real. Like, I don't know.
We live in this weird world where like now the smallest thing is just elevated to the nth degree, and part of that to me is how like kind of Twitter handles news sometimes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I look at it and like, oh, okay, so the Republicans are trying to get that tax bill passed, or Michael Flynn is actually now going to say that he was he basically lied under oath, and like there was collusion with the Russians, yada yada yada. On the second half of that is that it's like all this unimportant stuff that doesn't make sense to me, and like why is this on the feed, and why are people putting opinions onto it?
I think it's a lot of it's misdirection as well. I think the reason I really feel like people in power and people and politicians especially, like that is one of their game plans is misdirection. Is let's politicize little issues like this so we can distract them from the shit we're trying to do behind their back.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons we kind of like, you need to be aware of the world around you, because next thing you know, you're gonna have your rights stripped.
Right.
And it's gonna be fucking horrible. I mean, we're already seeing this with the fucking tax plan.
Right.
Like, this is not gonna be good for anybody unless you make $75,000 a year or more. Right. Apparently.
Well, I mean, it's not just like, also posts that like I see that are, whatever, sponsored by Twitter or whatnot. There's people who put stuff on their Facebook, and I wonder why they put it on their Facebook. It's like, why did you even bring this up?
Yeah.
Is this that important to bring up right now?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems that it's more of like something that goes against your philosophy, and like in such a minute matter that now you're bringing attention to it because you have a bunch of families and friends that are going to just agree with it, and that's you trying to like kind of create, I don't know, a better world for your opinion kind of thing. It honestly, it reminds me of this like recent episode of Orville I watched. It takes place on this planet where everything's based on likes and dislikes. So basically, your Facebook, Twitter world. It's like this. It's a planet that's just like Earth, but it evolved differently. And what they have is this thing called the feed, which is their version of the internet. Mm-hmm. And when someone like does something like reprehensible, they're basically either they're liked or disliked. And if they have enough dislikes, they actually go through a program where they're reprogrammed to be more submissive or more towards the majority of people's thoughts.
Yeah.
And like what I thought was like really funny about it is like one of the other crew members gets tied up in this, and instead of like standing trial, he has to go on a media tour and say, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to do this. He basically was doing like some grinding dances with a statue of a woman who basically is like Martin Luther King of that world, or like or like Harriet Tubman type character, like all rolled up in one, like a Gandhi type character, all rolled up in one. And like people found this like offensive and blah 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 blah. And like what happened is that like he gets taken to jail, and if he gets like I think 100 like or 90 mil or if it's like 100 million dislikes, then he has to go through this program that basically lobotomizes his brain. So the crew are trying to save this guy to basically say, okay, well we have to help him. Like, what do we do? And it's like, well, we can put in the feed to make him look more positive. And so they create these videos with the technology they have, where he's playing with a dog in a military outfit, so he's a veteran, and then basically doing all these like silly little things that like make the people more like they're more prone to put likes on him. And like what happens too is that someone asks like, well, what if someone corroborates the story? And like the person they have like a person on the planet that they beamed up, or not beamed up, but like they don't have transportation, but they brought in the shuttle, and they asked her like, what if they corroborate the story? And it's like, oh no, don't worry about that. No one's gonna check.
That's essentially what it is.
Yeah, and then like that's what happens, and kind of thing. And like I guess too, like I mean I really shouldn't say much about it, because like we come from a country that like the entire basis is freedom of speech. Obviously, there's going to be someone that says something that you don't like, and you can't really do anything about it, because if you don't, then that throws freedom of speech out the window and stuff like that.
Well, that's already, and I know there's arguments how that's also being kind of trampled. That's being trampled now.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you saw the whole thing with Gawker. Yeah. I mean, a billionaire in the tech industry went after a website.
Right.
Because they wrote an article about him that he hated,
right,
exposing that he was a closet homosexual,
right,
and he supported Hulk Hogan's lawsuit against Gawker to get them shut down,
right,
and that was a huge eye opener for a lot of like digital media places, and even like traditional media, It's like they allowed a billionaire to essentially shut down a voice in free speech,
right,
and freedom of press.
I thought Hulkamania had something to do with it too.
No, he didn't have any money because it was divorce. And
oh yeah, that's
and
right.
And this guy funded his lawsuit.
Yeah,
like just like I'll give you so much money to get this.
Right. So it wasn't the power of Hulkamania.
No, it wasn't the power of Hulkamania.
It wasn't the 24-inch pythons. That,
no, the power of Hulkamania ended when he tweeted out that one racist tweet.
Well, no, that wasn't a racist tweet. That was actually it goes with the video. He actually says a couple of racist things about his daughter going out with a black person.
Oh yeah,
and that became like after his sex video was revealed, and apparently it was like he's having sex with I forgot his name, one of his old friends who was a radio host, and like I guess they're just having like a conversation. Apparently it's like watching your mom and dad have sex. By the way.
It's really disturbing.
Yeah, well, it's not so much disturbing as it's probably the most wholesome sex anyone could have, and you're just like, why is Hulk Hogan doing it?
Yeah,
it's not like it's like wild or whatever. It's not like Paris Hilton style or whatever.
It's not something you can unsee.
Yeah,
either.
yeah, but like so what happened is that like he starts having like a bedroom conversation with this woman, and he ends up like revealing a little bit too much in terms of like his like sort of colorful language and stuff like that about his daughter dating a black person.
Yeah.
And he hasn't escaped that either. He actually ended up like being ejected from the WWE Hall of Fame.
He got ejected?
Yeah.
Oh.
They're slowly like letting him back in though, because they're making references to Hogan and stuff like that. They haven't asked him to come in and speak or anything like that, or come to a taping. From what I know, but yeah, it's when it hit, it basically WWE is like, okay, you're not associated with us. I mean, they kept all the content with him in it on the WWE network because they can't erase history. But it wasn't good for him for a while, but now they're kind of like
because now a lot of things that
a lot of stuff is cooled.
But also a lot of things are getting normalized.
Right. I mean, The Rock shared a recent story about him when he was a kid. And The Rock is half black, so I guess if you're the nicest movie star in the world and you've accepted Hogan or forgiven Hogan for what he said like in the past, then I guess it's okay. I mean, for God's sakes, everyone like forgot about what Trump said in that bus.
Yeah. That's
except
true.
for people who keep on pointing it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, but that I can't believe Wolfenstein the game is getting politicized for.
That's the whole point of this fucking game. Yeah. Like the whole point of the game since it began was fucking fighting Nazis.
I can't wait until like someone brings up Captain America.
I can't. You know what I can't wait for.
Wait a minute. He fights Nazis. I thought he only fought Hydra. Like, where do you think Hydra came from, assholes?
I can't wait until they make another Indiana Jones movies and he fights Nazis and people get pissed.
They're gonna get pissed because like, oh, he's gonna fight Nazis again. It's like, well, what kind of Indiana Jones movie do you want? Do you literally want an Indiana Jones movie where he fights like aliens? Because how did that work out? He didn't even fight them that much. I mean,
he fought communists.
Yeah. It's like, oh, this movie's dated. Like, okay, like who was the bad guy back then?
Why don't we just cut this podcast short because we're so riled up and go watch Thor 3.
Ragnarok. Have you seen it yet?
No, still haven't seen it.
You got to see that movie. That's
I know. I really want to go see it. I actually got 4 free movie tickets.
You did?
I do.
Why was that, like a door prize at a Christmas party or something like that?
No, it was actually it was something from work. For my birthday, because they celebrate people's birthdays, but they do the office thing where they don't celebrate everyone's birthday every time it's their birthday.
It's just like a one.
They just do like a one thing.
Yeah, my work did that for a while until
people complained.
Yeah. Well, they brought out a cake,
and they're like, "Oh, I don't like cake. I want pie."
Right.
Or I don't like this kind of cake.
That's what people do.
I know. People always do.
Like they need to be unseated or like be offended in some way. I was just like, whatever. I'll eat some cake.
Yeah. But I can sure use some pie right now.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
Okay, moving on. So I played a game and I did a stream of it. I'm not sure if you checked that out or not. It's called,
I saw some of it.
Okay, it's called Stories Untold.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of like a kind of a throwback game, not in the sense of like the 8-bit Nintendo era, but it's more of like a text adventure. So if you guys don't know what a text adventure is, it's basically a game that you play and it's all pure text. There's no graphics in it. Sorry, I just got discombobulated here. So back in the day before, hardcore, just like online RPGs or phone games or console games that like had these like 3D graphics and stuff like that. There were computer games. I mean, obviously we had home consoles, but they were Atari, so they were like just blocky graphics where you had to use a lot of imagination to figure out what you guys were doing in this game. So on the other side of that, in the computer game realm, they would give us text games, which were these little adventures in the kind of same vein of like how you played tabletop Dungeons and Dragons. Obviously, there would be a story that was being told, and you could like basically put in commands like go west, go left, go right, or it can be more complicated, like pick up object or use object with this object. These were program games that had text parsers where basically they would understand what you were trying to say. In some text games you could curse, and it would actually say watch your language. It was just very simple stuff back in the day that was like kind of exciting because it actually reacted to something that you would do on a whim. And then later on they added graphics, like very simple graphics, and eventually that led to adventure gaming, like the sort of like modern day adventure gaming where it was all graphical and like you had commands like Maniac Mansion, for example, or any of the Sierra games. Right now the equivalent to this is like the Telltale games where you have different options and different like conversation trees, and then like if you say one thing it'll affect your ending, yada yada yada. Heavy Rain does the same thing. What's that? Until Dawn is sort of like a form of that as well. But with Stories Untold, this is more of the line of, it's an interesting sort of meta game. So in the first adventure, you're basically a person going back to his old summer home, and you're booting up an actual text game called The House Abandoned. And as you're playing the game, the environment around you, which right now is like just an old computer that's like kind of on the same lines of the Commodore 64 and your desk lamp, and it like reacts to whatever you do in the game. So for example, if you like turn on lights, your like light will flicker on and off. Or like, the text game will say the phone just went off, and all of a sudden like the phone in the actual like, graphical in the graphics will just like start like ringing. And you can type in hang up phone, and then the text game will actually say the phone stops for some reason, or the little ringing stops for some reason. And it doesn't stop there. Like at the end of this game, like I'm going to spoil a little bit about a little of it for you. At the end of the game, you open a door and basically see yourself playing the game, and like a door opens behind you, and you can see a silhouette of someone there. And that's where it kind of stops. And it continues on when you play the next adventure. You're doing an experiment in some kind of underground laboratory of some sort, and it has to do with like encountering these like extraterrestrial pieces of technology. These drones, these spherical drones that like unlock memories inside your head, and you see a bunch of different images. I'm not going to spoil it too much. I'm just kind of giving you the gist. And the next adventure, you're in an Arctic base, very similar to like the movie The Thing, the John Carpenter one, not the one. I mean, I guess you could say the remake one as well, but I'm going to say the John Carpenter one because that's the good one. And you're basically going back and forth from a computer console, and like you have a radio, people are talking to you. You have to go back and forth to a microfiche, which is like a really terrible way to look up anything, whether in a game or real life. And you have to like find these codes to kind of unlock the second passcode so it can lead to the next clue. And it's still that sort of like kind of text based like format. You also have a radio so you can tune in, and then it'll actually give you more clues on like how to look up stuff on the microfiche, like where to reference. And then you have to put in that kind of like sequence of codes into the computer, and then it like tells you the next frequency and the next and the next and the next. And eventually you actually get up and walk around, which I thought was really neat because at that point it was just kind of like it took place in one area. It didn't take place anywhere else. You actually had to maneuver around the environment, which like kind of threw me off. And then finally, in the last chapter of this game, it's called The Last Session. You're basically a person in a hospital talking to a tape recorder. And like people are calling you by name. I believe the name was James. And what happens in this last chapter, it actually brings it all together. And I don't want to ruin the game. I mean, you can watch my stream, but I would highly recommend you just go out and buy the game and play it. Even if you're not a big text game guy, because it's not exactly like a normal classic text game. It's something that like will like, you know, basically be, it's like a real cool story that unfolds. And like you can't really see this unfolding in a movie, maybe a book, but really it kind of uses the medium to its advantage. So, I mean, if you're into like, you know, playing games that aren't too long and aren't too expensive, I believe this game's $4.99, which I think is actually a great price for it. You know, some people who are cheaper, like, well, I'll wait until it's $1.99. Go ahead and wait for that. But I would highly recommend this game because it takes all these like different themes, these different locations, and puts it all into a story that makes sense. And I was actually I just really enjoyed it because I was really hoping that it didn't end like the David Lynch type ending where, you know, his idea of storytelling, and don't get me wrong, I do like David Lynch. I like certain movies that he's done, but his storytelling now is more, if it happens, it just kind of happens. And like there's no meaning to it. There's no emotion to it. It's like it is like he'll throw raw emotion on the screen, but it's like there's no point to it. The only person it makes sense to is probably himself on a certain day. But everyone else is like, you know, either there's two thoughts. They don't get it, or they're like, oh, David Lynch is a genius.
But there's a deeper meaning, but there really isn't.
There really isn't, yeah. And it's like it's those people that like I want to strangle because they're always looking in. They're looking at so deep that they're making it up in their head, and I guess that's maybe why David Lynch is a painter, so he wants that to happen. But if you're giving us a medium that it's a visual storytelling with dialogue, with like, you know, sound design and stuff like that, you want the story to have some meaning to it, and I want to know what that story is. And I want it to be presented to me in such a way where I understand it. I mean, you can be obscure, but like you can't be too obscure where it just says, he's like, just watch it, and whatever it means to you, that's what it means to you, and whatever, I get it, but like I also do want a certain voice in there. With Stories Untold, it actually literally takes the title of the game and tells you what it means. Like, why is this story untold? Like, what's the purpose of it, and such. So yeah, that's why I really dug the game. I'm looking forward to, you know, the people who created this game. I'm looking forward to what they want to do next. I heard rumors that they might do a second season of Stories Untold because it was kind of presented in that almost like television show type format, but it's, you know, obviously it's a game. A lot of aspects reminded me of the television show Stranger Things. The font, the music, even, the settings, because it takes place in that sort of early 80s settings. So I had a lot of fun with this game. And, you know, I wish more games were like this.
This is only on PC?
This is only on PC. I got it on Steam for about $4.99 or $5.99. If you pay a couple dollars more, you can actually get the soundtrack, which I didn't, and I kind of like regret it because now I want the soundtrack. But yeah, I dug it.
I'm sure you can find it somewhere downloadable.
Like on a console?
The soundtrack.
Oh, the soundtrack.
I'm
yeah,
sure you can find it somewhere.
I'm sure I can find it on Amazon and stuff like that. But like, you know, I would have just bought it if I knew the music was so good. It's that very synth sound. So like, you know, it's very much like Stranger Things. Yeah, and I don't know if this game can even come out on like PlayStation or Xbox because it does heavily rely on the keyboard.
Yeah, I think they did, and that's kind of the drawback because I know they did that. They released, Day of the Tentacle and stuff like that
Yeah.
on the PS4, and it's a little difficult.
I played it and beat it.
Yeah, because those are more for mouse and keyboard, and you can't well, more mouse than anything. You can plug in a mouse and use that instead, which I think about now is like I probably should have done that. But yeah, some Scum games are a little difficult without a keyboard. But I can see them maybe doing like a bundle where they give you like a mini keyboard.
Right. Well, you can plug in a keyboard to the PlayStation. It'll work.
Yeah, but I mean to kind of get them sales, they're like, oh, don't you have to bother? You can just
you can buy the PlayStation keyboard that's wireless.
You can buy this little mini keyboard, or some shit like that.
Yeah, because I ended up getting like a Kindle keyboard because I thought, because I have like screenwriting software on my my Kindle, and I thought that would work really well with the Kindle. Apparently, it doesn't because like the button to tab over to a new text box doesn't exactly work, but it does work really well with my PlayStation.
Well, that's good.
Not that I like text on that or anything like that. Like, I mean, if I'm going to talk to someone, I'll put on the headphones and mic. Yeah. So let's move on. We were actually going to talk about this last time, but we never got a chance to. And I think it makes more sense to like talk about it now because I think they're heavily advertising this, and this movie's coming out this month. Star Wars: The Last Jedi, which is the follow-up to The Force Awakens. It's the second part of this. I guess we call it the third trilogy of this Star Wars franchise. So, looking forward to the movie. I mean, I am just because.
I don't know. I liked Force Awakens, but I don't know. I feel like wait, from his nap.
Yeah.
Oh, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi from his nap. I like that. I didn't see that. I don't know. I'm looking forward to
from his nap.
I'm looking forward to it to see what happened with for them to explain what happened with Luke and kind of see, what's going on in the world. But I don't know. Nowadays, it's not really. I don't really get excited for movies all that much.
Right.
I think because I don't really go to the movies too often anymore. So definitely one of those things where like, oh, I'll catch it in theaters. I think the only reason why I really want to see movies now is because I don't want someone to spoil it for me. But I've never been one to really hate spoilers too much because now I just go on Wikipedia and read the synopsis. That's how I watched Justice League. I went on Wikipedia and read the synopsis. But I am looking forward to see how they push along this trilogy. Just more importantly, see what they do with Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, I mean that's everyone's like curiosity. I mean, obviously there was stuff that was done in the past, prior to this movie series, and I'm exclusively talking about the Thrawn trilogy and books, the Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and The Last Command, where it does talk about what happened after the Battle for Endor. Yeah.
I think I'm more excited for Ryan. That it's Ryan Johnson directing this because he's done a lot of really great movies. He's done Brick, Looper. So I'm really excited to watch this.
Right.
Wait, what's the other Ryan Johnson movie he's really popular for? Brick, Looper, and isn't there another one?
Is there another one?
I thought there was one that he's like really popular for.
Because I do remember Looper. I didn't watch that in theaters, but I kind of like was kicking myself for not watching in theaters.
We watched it in theaters and it's great. Yeah. It's a really loud fucking movie.
Yeah.
So with the surround sound, it was really great experience. God, what is he known for?
I don't know. I just remember Brick and Looper. The Brothers Bloom, I guess.
Oh, he did Terriers. Well, he did one episode there. Brothers Bloom. I actually liked that one. That one was pretty good.
I'm all right with it. I wasn't the biggest fan.
I guess Brick was the one that really kind of put him on the map.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like his directing. And I was pleasantly surprised that they actually handed him the next trilogy of Star Wars.
Right.
So I'm interested to see where he goes with that because he said that this trilogy will end the Skywalker saga for sure.
So is he going to die at the end? Or what?
Well, who knows? And then he said the next trilogy is going to focus. It's going to be brand new. Like, it's not going to deal with.
So there's going to be another trilogy after this trilogy.
Yes, and he's in charge of the new trilogy. Right. And like I said, he's saying that it's not going to focus on the Skywalkers, which I'm glad because I I know there's core characters in
Mhm.
Star Wars that people really enjoy and they like, but I feel like the Star Wars universe has always felt too small, and I've always kind of a part of me has somewhat disliked when they introduce a new character and then they somehow connect them to
Right.
the Skywalkers or Han Solo or Princess Leia.
Well, I don't think they really did that much. I mean, you could say that maybe in the books they've done it, but no one really read the books besides, Star Wars
Yeah.
nerds. Like, I mean, I'm trying to like think of like where they've like kind of diverged from like in any like kind of medium besides the movies. And like I guess you could say the Clone War cartoon, but that has Anakin in it.
Like I enjoyed Rogue One.
Right.
I didn't care for much. I could have done without the whole Darth Vader fucking end scene.
Right. Oh, some people love that scene though.
Some people
Yeah.
gave me shit because I didn't like that scene.
Right.
Not that I didn't like it, I just thought it was totally unnecessary. I thought it kind of took away from them trying to establish this standalone,
Right.
story that it was connected, but it was its own thing. It
Right.
had it, and I felt like that kind of took. Like I thought they should have stopped. Pretty much once they got the plans, they should have stopped right then and there.
Right.
Like the whole Darth Vader, and then them like talking to Princess Leia, like them showing Princess Leia was like they could have just stopped right there.
Right.
Like,
well, I
didn't
did
have to
like the
show.
inclusion of and people think I thought he looked great, but I did like Tarkin.
Tarkin.
Yeah.
Tarkin made sense. That
Because-
made sense.
Yeah,
to
and
me.
I liked how. I mean, I was looking at it, and people were like, "Well, it's obviously CG." Well, yeah, I know it's obviously CG because we know that he's dead.
Yeah.
But like how he was created, I thought was really neat. I like the fact that they actually found that latex mask mold of his face that they used in Top Secret when he was in that film, and that's probably the reason why I thought the lighting was so realistic on his face, and how I didn't really see it as distracting as later on when they showed CG Princess Leia. She looked really distracting. She had these weird eyes, almost like as if the eyes weren't moving like naturally with her head.
Mhm.
Whereas Tarkin, I thought, was fine, and they're like, well, it's not really his voice. Like, I know, I mean, guys, he's dead. Of course they can't recreate his voice. And like, well, they could have got a person like to better impersonate him. Yeah, they could have got a person better impersonate him, but they needed an actor to play the role. It always bugs me when like people say like, why couldn't they get like a Captain Kirk who just talked exactly like Shatner? Because then it would be a parody version of that character. It's not going to be Captain Kirk anymore. It's going to be William Shatner talking in his little, the way he used to talk in Star Trek. So it doesn't make sense to really do that.
I just want a movie where they focus on Sleazebag, and him selling death sticks and how his life was turned around by Obi-Wan.
Right. Someone tried to convince me that was Matthew Broderick, but I knew that it wasn't Matthew Broderick at all.
So I mean, yeah, I am looking forward to it,
Yeah.
but I'm not like fanatical about it.
I mean, I'm looking forward to it too, just because I want to see what happens next, and like
I just want to see more Donnie Yen.
yeah, unfortunately, spoiler guys, he died.
God damn it.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I didn't think the entire Rogue One story was necessary, but I really dug it because I like Donnie Yen.
Yeah.
And I think Donnie Yen's character was great. I like also like what's his name, Baz as well. I like that. I like those two like sort of characters because they were Asian characters that just didn't say two words and die in an X-wing fighter.
Yeah.
Also,
and Baz was just badass with that giant fucking rail guy.
yeah, I thought that was a great weapon.
He wasn't a martial art expert.
Yeah, that's what I really dug about his character. And I love the fact that he, like, even when he accepted the Force, he just started saying it and just started pumping like stormtroopers with that giant gun. What was I saying here? I mean, I dig the fact that we have good Star Wars movies. And I know that prequel trilogists will say, well, George is not involved. And it's like, that's probably the reason why we have good Star Wars movies.
I will say that, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I don't hate the prequels.
I do.
I don't hate them with a passion.
Right.
I think they're at this point in my life, I'm just kind of like whatever with them, except for Clone Wars. Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones.
I really fucking hate Attack of
Right.
the Clones. You know why I really fucking hate Attack of the Clones?
Because of sand?
Well, yes, the dialogue, the whole fucking
Yeah.
romance, they could have done that. He could have done that. He couldn't have. he could have done the entire whole like romance courtship forbidden fucking thing, forbidden love, very minimal, and kind of put it against the backdrop of
I don't think he could
of Senate and him being like a Jedi.
Yeah,
but the Dalek was just so bad. It was so shittily handled. Like, I really do not like that movie.
all right.
Except for the Jango Fett stuff, which was cool, because I also liked Temuera Morrison.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan. The Obi-Wan stuff was good because he had a fucking mullet, which is fucking hilarious to me. But yeah, the whole fucking I really dislike, because you really look at that movie, nothing fucking happens in that movie.
No, not really.
Like,
no. I mean,
and
to me, nothing really happens in all three movies except at the end of the third movie.
And not only that, Anakin is really, really, really fucking hateable in that movie.
Yeah.
And Anakin is essentially a fucking whiny teenager in that movie.
Right. Well, okay, I have,
and I get that, and I get why.
I have friends who try to spin that, like, oh, they're trying to like portray emotionally, or like a person with mental disorders and stuff like that, or a person who almost autistic type character. And I don't really see it. I just see an actor with bad direction.
Yeah.
That's all I see, is that it's an actor with bad direction and terrible dialogue. And really, like, at the end of like Revenge of the Sith, you're scratching your heads like, why does he go to the dark side again?
Yeah.
Besides like
because he wanted to save his wife.
Yeah.
That entire reason why he goes to the dark side, like, yeah, you cut off Mace Windu's hands and you let the Emperor kill him.
Yeah.
But how was it just like, oh fuck, I fucked up.
Yeah.
Well, I guess might as well be evil.
Yeah, that's what. And like, I'm gonna go kill children now.
Yeah,
like to me, the journey never really was like.
No, it was he didn't really flesh out the entire journey very well.
And I heard that like people were even telling that to him. It's like, I don't get it. It's like what do you mean? It's like, why does he go to the dark side again? And then like he goes through his like entire thing. Like maybe his mother dying. But that happens in the second film, and we saw a little bit of it, but maybe that should have been why he went to the dark side, or something like on that lines. But like it just like it didn't really click. I feel like
the stuff that they needed to flesh out that turn and kind of like the influence that Palpatine had was all handled in the books and the novelization, and what we got was the Cliff Notes version.
Right.
Which is horrible.
Well, I think what it was is that like when who did the books? Like I think it's J.M. Dillard who always does the books. Because I think he actually even did like the original like trilogy back in the day as well. He was probably given the script, and then he probably had to make sense in his head of why he went to the dark side. Obviously, no one's gonna go read a book and like find out like why he went to the dark side. Yada 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 yada. But he probably had to make sense in his head, like, okay, this is the reason why, and this is what his feelings were on that, and blah, 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 so he can make all those attachments. And maybe they probably should have taken those notes and put it towards the actual finished film, but probably at that point it was too late. I always like this. I don't know if you ever heard of Red Letter Media. They have this character called Mr. Plinkett, and he does this sort of dissection of all three trilogies. Mm-hmm. And like every time like I have like maybe a desire to watch the trilogies ever again, which is I don't really have that desire, because most of the time I watch maybe the first 15 minutes of Phantom Menace or whatever, and I just kind of give up, and I'm like not paying attention or like looking at my phone or playing my PSP or doing something that distracts me.
Well, you're talking about the prequel trilogy or the original?
The prequel trilogy.
Okay, yeah, the prequel trilogy. Yeah. I don't think I can sit there.
Yeah, so like then I decide if I ever have that inkling just to say like, oh, well, maybe it'll be good this time around after I've seen this.
We just watched that guy's breakdown.
Yeah, I just watched that breakdown and kind of reminds me, no, it's never going to be good, because like it seems like it was handled like the entire movie was made by a 5-year-old. Yeah. And that's what it feels like. I
still think it's true what a lot of people say, which is with Anakin, he shouldn't have started when he was a kid.
Right.
It should have started that prequel trilogy. Yeah. Honestly, should have started with Attack of the Clones.
Right.
It's or what Anakin was at that age.
Yeah.
Which is he should have been a fucking whiny teenager who found out that he's really good with the Force.
Yeah.
But he doesn't like taking fucking direction, and he thinks people are holding him back, which makes sense.
Because
they even talk about it in the beginning of Attack of the Clones. Is Yoda and Obi-Wan are talking, and Obi-Wan outright tells him, like, you know, lately a lot of the fucking Jedi we have, they're way too sure about themselves and their abilities, and they're really brash, and they're overly confident. Like, they don't know that they need to kind of like tone them, you know, essentially control their emotions and be in the moment and control themselves. Which, when you think about it, like, and I know it's something that I remember talking to at Tiny Dinosaurs with. Yeah. It's Lucas, I think, had mentioned that the way he planned the trilogy was to kind of have people who were young relate to it. Mm-hmm. You know, they're little kids, they're teenagers, they're adults.
Right.
Which is completely fucking horrible because he's trying to sell toys. That's why he made it like Phantom Menace was for little kids. They turned into fucking preteens and teenagers for Clone Wars. Yeah. And then now they're adults and they're fucking like, oh, you're an adult. You get to be fucking have powers and get to be a badass and be Darth Vader and fuck shit up. If he really wanted to make those movies good, he really should have started at Anakin being a teenager.
Right.
And then kind of made that gradual thing of like Anakin didn't have a father. So Palpatine kind of stepped into that role and influenced him. As he got older, he influenced him more and more. And by the time Clone Wars, the third one rolls around, Sith, essentially when he turns to the dark side, he's, not an old man, but he's well into like his late 30s, early 40s.
Right.
And he's thinking about, well, maybe I don't want to fucking be a Jedi and be celibate, and maybe I want to fucking fall in love and have kids and shit. And
see, what you're talking about is a storyline, though, which I don't think.
Which is, and again, it's a storyline that could have been followed,
right?
Or that could have been, done well. But it seems like, I feel like Lucas at that point. I mean, it just, again, it was the merchandising. I think a lot of that was the because they even say when he was doing the first trilogy, the original trilogy,
he wanted the license to all merchandising.
He wanted the license to all merchandising.
Yeah.
And that's why by the time the third one rolled around, it was a little more like kind of cutesy and.
Well, you had like speeder bikes and Ewoks.
The Ewoks and stuff. And I know the story behind the Ewoks was he wanted it to be Wookiees, but he couldn't afford it.
Right.
It was way too expensive to make those Chewbacca suits. It was like it was actual yak's fur.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. It was yak's fur, and it was way too expensive to make those suits. So he went with fucking Ewoks.
Right.
But again, it was about the merchandising. So I feel that's kind of what he was doing with the trilogy. I think he's even went on record saying the prequel trilogy wasn't meant for adults. He's like, it wasn't meant for. I think he said like something similar to it wasn't meant for adults. It wasn't meant for people who grew up with Star Wars. It was meant for children and the new generation, for them to have their own trilogy.
I guess, and I get that, but like. I feel that he's done that before, and like he did that in television movie form with the Ewok films. I think there were 2 of them. He's done a couple of Saturday morning cartoons, and I don't know why he had to make an entire film. I mean, if he wanted to make a film, I really don't think the prequel trilogy made like the idea of like the story behind like the prequel, like what would create that storyline. I'm not sure if like the storyline of a guy who kills a bunch of Jedi would have been like the perfect story for that. If he wanted to make a children's story, there would probably be there could have been a whole wealth of stories that he could have told instead. But he decided to go with, let's show the downfall of Darth Vader, or the downfall of, I guess, Anakin Skywalker. I mean, to me, that's a little bit more adult than like a bunch of like happy little go lucky Ewoks. And I get that he put a couple of things in there to make it more cutesy, like guns and insect thingamajiggies. I forgot what they're called. Geonosians and Watto and like and stuff like that. But I just felt that like he just wrote the first draft and basically like, this is too much work. So here you go. Let's make a movie out of that.
Have you ever seen the behind the scenes?
Yeah,
Of,
where he says he went
episode 1.
Yeah, he went too far in some places.
Yeah, and he's
That's
like
exclusively studied by the guys at Red Letter Media
and
too.
it's great watching
Yeah.
that because he's like sitting there and he's watching it with the producer.
Yeah, McCallan.
Yeah, and
the editor too was like trying to point out what he's doing wrong.
And they're all just like you can see the looks on their face. They're like, this is horrible.
Yeah,
they are legitimately saying in their fucking faces are saying, this makes no fucking sense. And Lucas, I think even Lucas realizes that it makes no fucking sense. But at that point, they had filmed so much.
Right.
He was like, well, fuck it.
Well, it's really funny to me.
We'll fix it in fucking editing.
Yeah, which it's really funny to me because like here's the thing, like people do reshoots, and they've been doing reshoots for I don't know however many years. Like when they do a screening like that and something doesn't work, they make plans to say, okay, well we need to reshoot a couple of scenes. Like a good example too is like the Justice League. They lost the original director Zack Snyder because of family tragedy, and they brought in Joss Whedon. Joss Whedon said, "Okay, we have to do some reshoots." He wanted to actually do a lot more reshoots because he even said, "This movie doesn't make any sense." But obviously, the producers at that time was like, "No, we have to push this out as soon as possible because we're running behind." And I guess the typical warning is that, well, yeah, we're running behind, but it doesn't make any sense, so it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. So, like, it really puzzles me that, like, George didn't do that. He didn't sit down and say, okay, we're going to have to do some reshoots, which would be, like, the solution, like, to his problems. Like sit down, they look at what's written, they figure out, okay, what works and what doesn't, like, what parts do we get rid of, and what do we keep? And now what do we do with the reshoots? And that would have made sense. And like, of course, it like throws the schedule off, but that's just filmmaking. His original trilogy, it didn't come out on time. It didn't come out under budget. He had to do a lot of stuff with that film. He went through several editors, and finally the last editor team like got what he was trying to do, and that's how we got the original trilogy. Mm-hmm. And part of it is that, and I've been studying film for a while, and I went to film school and read a lot of books. One of the things that you get out of it is that like he doesn't really like going on location. He doesn't really like shooting films, and that explains why the Red Letter Media guys also point this out, is that explains the reason how those movies were made, those prequel movies, because they were made, like, at least the follow-up film to that was mostly in a green screen room, and like they use not very dynamic camera angles. It looks like, if you look at it, it's like shot like a soap opera. It's got very like almost, you can even say almost like circa 1980 television camera work, mm-hmm. where they're doing over the shoulder, they're doing close-ups, they're doing wide shots and stuff like that, which is really funny because if you go to Empire of Dreams, that documentary that comes with the original trilogy when it was released on DVD, one of the problems that George Lucas had with the first editor is that it was very undynamic in terms of editing. They kind of just went to wide shot to close up, and then they went to another wide shot. Whereas the people who came in, like, they took this, how the sound creature like does the with the mm-hmm. with a gaffy stick going up and down. They actually created that in editing. Like originally they raised it once, but then they went just back and forth.
Oh, you can actually tell because they like loops.
They loop it. It's almost like a GIF. And just to kind of show that there's like a little bit more raw emotion in that scene than there was when they originally shot it. So like it's just like very blandly shot film with these bland camera angles and like these just overall just bland plot, that it just kind of becomes just a huge mess mm-hmm. of a film that, and like it's very apparent that he just doesn't like shooting movies. He doesn't like to take the time. I mean, it's like a lot of, when I was going through film school, filmmaking is a process. I mean, anything's a process that requires work. Like creating a good game is a process. Writing a good story is a process. You do have to go through like a lot of like just problem solving on the way, and like trying to create this like experience that you're trying to create. Whereas I think he just didn't like. And I hate when people say, "Well, he's an avant-garde filmmaker." No, he just doesn't like going. He just doesn't like waiting around. He's probably
at that point in his life where he didn't want to do that.
He probably didn't want to do it. Yeah, I don't think he did, but he
wanted to get a story out there. So at that point, why not just hire
Well, that's
Why-
the thing. He did
should've-
that before.
He just no. I mean,
Yeah.
he should have just hired somebody else to direct all
Well,
that shit.
yeah. I mean, he's done that before. He did that twice with Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back. Now, a lot of people say that he was more hands-on on Return of the Jedi. I think even the director, Marquand, even said that too, because Marquand didn't understand the sort of special effects part of directing
Mhm.
a film like that. But on that other hand, like I think who's the guy who directed Empire? I'm blanking.
It wasn't Lawrence.
No, not Kasdan. I think he wrote it. Irving Kershner. God, why couldn't I remember that?
Irvin Kershner was the one who said no.
Yeah,
right?
he was basically George's teacher back in the day, and he told him like, look, I'll direct the film, like, no problem, but it has to be my way.
Yeah.
And what we got out of that was probably one of the most memorable science fiction films of all time. That had real human emotions and, like, you know, a real more organic sort of romance than, say, Attack of the Clones. Like, none of that was wasted on, you know, really lame scenes about guns making these dumb, you know, fart jokes or whatever. And I wouldn't even call them fart jokes. Like, these very, like, vaudeville type jokes. Have you ever watched any of George's just like other films that weren't Star Wars related, like Tucker or Tucker? Probably is not a good example because I don't think he directed that. But I mean, obviously Howard the Duck. I don't think he directed that. Actually, he doesn't direct any of these other films.
What has he even directed?
There was this one film that he worked on called Radioland Murders, and there's a character in that film that I swear to God is basically Jar Jar Binks. He's I think one of the main character that's just like really, you know, clumsy and accident prone, and it's I guess George's idea of what he feels funny. He likes slapstick, but like bad slapstick. Like, I'm not talking about, like, you know, I'm not talking about Three Stooges type slapstick. This is just dumb slapstick. That's where I feel that Jar Jar Binks came from his head, like Zeus. He also directed a film. I believe he co-directed this one, but Red Tails, which I have not seen. Which a lot of people, it's avant-garde because it has an African-American cast, and that's why people didn't like it, blah, 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 blah. No, they didn't like it because it probably wasn't a great film. By the way, we've had plenty of films that have African-American cast directed by an African-American.
I don't think he directed Red Tails, actually. Trying to see who did Red Tails.
Anthony Hemingway.
Yeah, Anthony Hemingway.
I believe he did write this, though, and produce it.
No, he didn't write it either.
Oh, he didn't?
I think he was a producer. Yeah, I think he was a producer. They made it seem like he directed it, though.
Well, I think the idea was that he had a lot of input in this film.
Okay.
Probably explains why no one remembers it, and probably explains the reviews as well of how the film did. Because, like, he had a lot of input in Howard the Duck and Radioland Murders.
I love how he completed this owns Howard the Duck.
Well, like, it's really weird to me. It's like, what in that film is less offensive than anything that he's done in the prequel?
What I love about Howard the Duck is that just awakened a bunch of furries.
I feel that was more like the Get Along Gang and, you know, cartoons like that. But yeah, you might be right. It does have a naked duck chick in it. Duck chick? Is that duck woman? Duck chick? That's like two different species right there.
I don't know. Fucking Howard the Duck, man.
Well, you know what? I mean, that was a comic book. It was a Marvel comic book. In fact, that's actually the first Marvel motion picture that went on screen.
That movie started the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I don't think it started the cinematic universe, but it does start Marvel's like foray into creating shitty films.
It started the cinematic universe. Trust me, it did. That's how Thanos was created, but from Howard the Duck.
I thought it was like.
Are you looking forward to Star Wars: Last Jedi?
Yeah, I'm looking. Yeah, I mean, I like Star Wars movies except for the prequels. I do really dig that animated series, Star Wars Rebels.
Mm.
I think that show's a lot fun. It's a lot of fun. I really didn't like Clone Wars until like their 4th season.
I tried watching Clone Wars from the beginning, and it's just really fucking boring.
No, well, the problem is it has to do with like an era of Star Wars that I'm very disinterested in. Now, I did really like the ones that Getty Turskovsky did, the animated ones that were not CGI animated, but like they were like more 2-dimensional, because those were like 5-minute segments that like told a whole story. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Clone Wars. I don't have any like. I'm not a big fan of that. Who's the Padawan? That's Anakin's Padawan, Ashoka Tan or whatever. Like people love her. I'm like, okay. It's like she should have been alive and killed the Emperor. I'm like, blah blah blah. I'm like, well, that didn't happen. I mean, I get it. Like they like the character, but I didn't really understand it because like I found her kind of annoying in the beginning. And now I do like her in Rebels because she's like a different type of character. She's not the annoying kid that we already had one called Anakin Skywalker. Yeah, that's the problem with the prequels is that they always create these different characters. Like, let's create a character that's like, you know,
it's like Final Fantasy 12. They had this really cool cast of characters, and they're like, oh, let's add these 2 kids, Penelo and fucking Vaughn,
right? Who
everyone fucking hates except for the Japanese.
Right. I don't know who those people are.
In Final Fantasy, no, is that that thing that's 12? Yeah, like I remember talking to Tiny Dinosaurs about this, and they're like, and actually our former boss. They both mentioned how like the original story was only supposed to be the adults, and then because the Japanese always like to have like a perspective from the kids.
Isn't that why Raiden was in Metal Gear 2?
Yeah, they're like they threw those 2 characters in, and fucking everyone like except for Japanese fans, like everyone fucking hates those 2 characters.
Yeah.
Raiden didn't bother me that much. I mean, a lot of people hate him. Raiden didn't bother me, but I would have preferred to play as Snake.
Me too, yeah.
But Raiden still doesn't bother me. But I also understand. I mean, looking back at Metal Gear Solid 2, it's actually a really...
No, it's a fun game. It's great.
It's a great game, but aside from that, it's a pretty deep fucking game because it's a remake of... You're essentially playing Metal Gear Solid 1 again. Yeah. But the way Kojima, kind of like towards the end of it, when he's fucking with you, he really fucks with your mind and really is trying to say something. And Metal Gear Solid 3 was great. I actually thought 3 is probably my second favorite. So it's solid, and then Snake Eater, and then probably 2 maybe. But then after 3, I mean 4 was great.
I didn't play that one.
4, I really enjoyed 4. Because he moved it more towards more actiony, but I could not get.
I heard it's cutscene.
I think once it is, but the gameplay that's there for 4, it's still really great.
Right.
After 4 though, I feel like Kojima just kind of made the story way too complicated.
Well, at that point he was kind of like sort of on his way out.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you play. I couldn't stand 5.
Well, Phantom Pain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I couldn't fucking stand it.
I played part of 3. I just was terrible. Since I don't have that suit on that tells me where everyone is. Yeah, I was horrible in stealth. Like I would go into a base and like, oh, there he is, and like, okay, well now I got to shoot everyone with my shotgun.
So.
But yeah, that's like.
I know.
What the hell were we talking about originally?
How did we get into Metal Gear talk?
Yeah.
Oh, we're talking about Lucas and all that. I don't know.
Yeah. Like.
Oh, we're talking about how everybody hates fucking how you don't like Ahsoka Tan.
Well, I mean, it's like I don't see like the appeal of her. Like, I like Hera from Rebels. I like what's her name, Sabine. I like all those characters. I just don't like this weird character who says that she's not a Jedi yet she uses the Force all the time. I mean, I sort of had a problem with like maybe Jedis being part of the rebellion in the first place, but I kind of get it. Like they didn't say that they were really Jedi and stuff like that, and like of course like people want that, and like, oh, we want a Jedi here or whatever. But I kind of like also have kind of senses that, well, they're not in any of the other Star Wars stuff like afterwards, so they probably got killed, and like we had to have that scene make sense from the original New Hope, or what as a kid what I call the first Star Wars film, where Obi-Wan says that Darth Vader went and hunted and killed all the Jedi. I mean, I need to know that actually happened, so that scene in Star Wars isn't just Ben Kenobi lying.
I wish the purge would have been like across the entire Clone Wars kind of war, but also
you mean like
after.
he's like killing him through each movie,
like
kind of thing?
Essentially, like once he turns to the dark side, that's his mission, is to hunt down all the Jedi, because he doesn't want to be overthrown by someone who could be more powerful than him.
It's very like a Game of Thrones almost type, like Star Wars, and that would have been a lot more cooler. But we didn't get that.
You know what also would have been cool storyline wise would have been just like, had he started when Anakin was a teenager, maybe have him turn to the dark side by like the second movie, and then the third movie could have been, you know, his fucking relationship with the Emperor.
Right.
Because I know they talk about that in some of the books and comics, is like how once he's become Darth Vader, he hates himself.
Right.
But what he hates even more is that he's essentially a slave to the Emperor. Because I don't know if it's the comic books or even the novelizations, they mention how this is probably, I think this was in the EU, the old EU.
Right.
Is that the Emperor purposely put him in that suit and made it that he was more machine than man, so he had control over him. And I know one of the things that I always thought was hilarious was that the Emperor purposely made that suit uncomfortable. One, to kind of fuel Anakin's anger that he was always uncomfortable in that suit, but also he had him under control. Like, why didn't Darth Vader ever? If Darth Vader was so powerful, why didn't he ever like try to kill the Emperor himself?
Right. Not until the end.
Not until the end.
When his like suit is half damaged.
Yeah, and why wasn't it until Luke Skywalker came around that he even thought about overthrowing the Emperor? Like, was he really thinking about overthrowing the Emperor at some point? Like, what was the turning point? Like
kind of giving a reason.
Yeah, like what was the reason why he decided to throw? Although in Jedi, I mean, that's a very good reason. It's like he's gonna kill your son.
Yeah. It's like, okay, makes more sense.
It's a very understandable reason. Like, it's your son, he's gonna kill your son.
Yeah, I mean that scene could have. I mean, from Return of the Jedi, could have had a callback from any of the prequels if Lucas was in his right mind and created something that made sense. Like maybe he sees a scene sees a time where the Emperor like electrocutes a bunch of younglings. Maybe Darth Vader doesn't kill him, but like the Emperor decides to kill younglings. Where at that point, like maybe Anakin only killed adults at that point, and like he kind of sees it as that could have been a throwback. That could have been. That could have been the prequel.
Yeah, like, and then that's why he made a point to save his son, was that he totally fucking choked when it could have mattered, and he could have been redeemed at a certain point when the Emperor started hunting down other Jedis, and
that would have been neat, but we didn't get that. No, we didn't get that. We didn't get a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of little things too about that world that I like that they talk about. Like I know in the new Battlefront game, they talk about how there's a mission where you have to go destroy the Emperor's archives, and it was covered in the EU a lot, and I think they're starting to cover it more. Is that between the time the Emperor took over to the time the original trilogy starts, the Emperor's like hoarding a bunch of Jedi artifacts. Essentially, he's trying to hoard all that history that they have, but also erase it so that nobody else can find this stuff. But it's like, why was he hoarding instead of destroying all this like Jedi history and information? Like, why was he necessarily hoarding it? Like, what was he hoarding it? What was the information to him? Like, was he going to use it to, do something with it? Like build,
like a contingency plan,
like a contingency plan or something. Like that's the stuff that kind of interests me. It's like the little things.
Order 66.
Yeah. The little things like that is what interests me. Like, why did he have all these Jedi artifacts? Like, what was the Jedi? What was the Jedi like religion and all that to him?
Right.
Versus someone who was a Sith. You know?
Well, we didn't get any of that either.
Like, that's the shit that interests me.
Well, one of the things I think in Rogue One they talk about is like when they're at that, I guess, what is it, a library planet or whatever, like a records planet?
It's essentially like a database of information.
A database of information. They actually do talk about a couple of things that were in Rebels. They like Project Darksaber. Yeah. That's an actual thing that happens in
Rebels.
Rebels. It's a lightsaber that was owned by the only Mandalorian Jedi. And like I think at this point Sabine is in possession of it, and it's kind of like a symbol of leadership to their people or whatever. So I thought that was kind of cool, and like they went through each one, and then like of course they find the one that
the Death Star plans.
The Death Star plans are connected to. I really dig that movie. I mean, I get like why people have problems with this. Like, why does it have to be made? Like, well, it's just they're just made a movie out of a sentence. Like, yeah, that's what they did.
It was still a really well done movie.
Yeah, it's a well made movie, and like I actually thought like the ship fighting, like the space battles, had more weight to it than any of the prequels.
That's the stuff that I love now. Like when I was younger, I was all about the Jedi, but now as I get older, it's like I actually love kind of like the everyday man, like rebel soldier, or even like
I think
just the ground troops. Like
that's the idea is that
and that's what I think that's what I liked about Rogue One, and like that's what I've always looked to are the pilots, like the Rogue Squadron and all the fucking X-Wing pilots, like even
Jack Porkins,
whatever, Pork Jenkins. Jet
Porkins. They call the fat guy Porkins. He was not in the battle though, but what's his name was in it? Red Leader.
Oh yeah,
Red Gold Leader. Yeah, which I thought was cool because then we saw them like as legitimate, like why they led the squads. It made sense, and like I like the fact that they were actually good at their job.
And then they died in
New Hope. But I mean, they were going against the badass Sith Lord. So.
And then fucking Luke Skywalker, I can hit that in fucking Beggar's Canyon. I've hit womp rats that were only womp rats that are only 2 meters long. It's like shut the fuck up.
I think
Luke.
he said it womp rat holes. I think.
Yeah, it's like shut up, Luke.
So basically, they just said like, okay, this character's like he just killed like small little creatures in their homes.
They probably find out that they're actually.
He's a Jedi. That doesn't make any sense. He's a Sith Lord.
They probably find out that they're porgs. That's what Luke was killing, porgs.
Porgs. I wonder if Porkins has any relation to porgs.
When the movie comes out,
he probably eats them.
When the movie comes out, we should just go on a huge Star Wars like rant. Right.
I mean, I'm sure we will. I mean, I want to watch it and see what it's like. And hopefully, it'll be good. It can't be any worse than the prequels. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
But porgs notwithstanding, I know that there's a huge thing about porgs, and I don't really care because they'll probably not have that much input in the story. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I don't care.
I think my favorite scene in the trailer was when they have those ships that are flying on the sand and they're making those red chemtrails. Yeah, there's chemtrails in fucking Star Wars, okay?
Yeah.
That looks cool.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure people will have problems with that.
I actually want to see more of Finn and Poe Dameron.
Poe Dameron?
Especially since his character was supposed to die.
He's supposed to die in the first film, yeah. But
that's how good he is. He's so charming that they kept him alive.
Yeah, I want to see more Poe. The best pilot in the Rebel fleet.
Exactly. All right. I think that's enough ranting about Star Wars.
Okay, so...
Fucking Lucas. Goddamn prequels. We got any shout-outs?
No. Well, I don't know. Vic, he's not here, but he usually joins us.
God damn it, Vic. Maybe that's the one watching.
No, that's just us.
Oh, okay.
I'm viewing the basically if you're watching the stream, then you got at least one person. You can follow us on Twitter at IncognitBro and at Chucking Dice. Please share, like, and subscribe, and always leave comments if you want us to talk about something else besides the obvious Star Wars stuff, because we're just going to talk forever about it. And we hate the prequels. I don't care if your children loves the prequels. Your children are dumb, and they probably like Pokemon. They need to play more games like freaking Wolfenstein II and Stories Untold.
Not gonna lie to you, don't tell my wife, but my kid was watching me play Wolfenstein.
Oh, really?
Probably shouldn't have been watching Wolfenstein.
Right. Of course, you just said it on a live podcast, and I can't edit it.
And there goes someone calling Child Protective Services on me.
It's a video game. Seriously, how many murders do we get after Mortal Kombat?
That's true.
None. Yeah. No one. I mean, like, how many of the shooters nowadays are like, well, I did it because of Mortal Kombat?
That's true.
See? Video games don't affect attitude.
I'll fucking kill you, though, if you beat me in this video game.
Not before I kill you.
So, share, like, and subscribe.
Don't beat us in video games because we'll kill you because of Mortal Kombat.
Exactly. And check out Chucky and Dice's YouTube channel. He's got a lot of cool stuff on there.
We're doing terror games in the dark. I might do one tonight. Probably see how tired I am. Because now I got to wake up earlier in the morning.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, I just play horror games
Until you die of fright.
Die of fright, which usually doesn't happen. I get scared in horror games, but I enjoy playing them. And that's it. You got anything else?
No, that's it. That's all I got.
Thanks for joining us and keep it rolling.